My name is Kit Cassingham. I am a longevity coach. These Zoom calls got started when Dawn, through RV Business Coach, we were comparing business notes one day, and we just got to talking about different topics and realized that our two very different coaching arenas had a lot of the same important, relevant topics. So we decided it could be interesting to have monthly Zoom calls where we talk about the subjects that impact our clients from our different angles. So this month we're talking about energy management. I just read recently that essentially everyone complains about not having enough energy. I know in my coaching program, the issues that when we're going through our strategy session to see if we'll work well together, energy typically rates lowest of all the topics we discuss. So it seems like a really good one to address. And this is going to be a different format than if you come next month, because if usually Don and I sit and talk about things and then open it up to the group. You and I get to just talk.
I like it.
So I think energy management is important because I don't think we live life well if we don't keep our energy vibrant. I happen to be one of those people who rarely complains about being low energy. And when I'm mentioning it, it's because I've done something like walk all day or been gardening all day and shoveling gravel or dirt or carrying rocks. Mm-hmm. I rarely wake up tired or get tired just for the heck of it. It's never a long-term thing for me. And I do understand, sometimes my mood will be a little low. And if I think differently, I pick my energy up just by the decision to do that. Do you have experiences of why your energy can be low, or what is your energy level?
I'm the one that would have got tired watching you do all that work.
You would help for 5 minutes. I'm going to take a break here for a minute.
Yeah. Energy, obviously, it comes and goes. It's different on different days. There's a lot that impacts it. I'm not a high energy person. As a whole, I am fairly active, but I'm not just super high energy and all that.
So what's the difference? What do you define high energy as? You're active but not high energy.
So it's easy for me to slow down and do nothing and relax. Sometimes it takes a bit of changing of mindset or struggle to get back off of the couch or to get out of the hammock or whatever it is that I'm doing. But I do get out on hikes several times a week, and I do things around the house or around the yard. So I'm not spending 12 to 15 hours a day sitting on the couch, but okay. It's also very easy for me to say, hey, I'm going to sit on the couch and eat lunch and be there for 2.5 hours.
So when you talk about energy management, are you thinking that, do you have the energy to do what you want? I'm going to say every day, most days throughout the day? Or do you really sag some days? Okay. So
yeah, I'm going to go no. And because there are days that I would like to go do things and I just simply don't feel like it. So I don't. So.
Now, is that a mental energy or physical energy? Trick question, huh?
Yes. Yeah. I know there are outside factors that affect my energy. Even things down to the weather or whatever else is going on in the outside world. But and there are definitely mental aspects that impact it. But sometimes it's just pure physical energy. So
okay. understand that. And I wish Don were here because he has a really fun, he has a quote from Michael Hyatt that goes something like, there's no such thing as time management, only energy management.
Mhm.
Which is kind of the flip side of what we're talking about, but it definitely points to a lot of the topics we can cover today.
Yes.
So the question that then comes up is, what sucks our energy? What builds our energy?
Mhm.
Maybe more concisely, what impacts our energy in life? I know for me, clutter and chaos will suck my energy.
Definitely.
My office is in the yurt. You can kind of see an image of it. My husband and I lived here while we were building our house, having our house built. And it's only 300, I call it's 300 round feet. It's 20 foot diameter. So multiply that pi and you get 307 or 14 or something like that.
Okay.
And I knew that with 2 people, 2 offices, 2 cats, and our personal stuff, we had to be real careful with our space use. And I had a place for everything.
Yeah.
My husband doesn't subscribe to this. So my joke is, when we moved in, there were 300 round feet, and when we moved out, there were 100 round feet. Just right. He would come in and put stuff down, and at a little bit at a time, it just took up, you take up the space you have, right?
You do.
And it just, I would have tension and feel, and he just totally oblivious to it all. So clutter and chaos, and I saw you nod your head. That's an issue for you too?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has an impact. I'm more used to small spaces. I've lived in larger homes, I've lived in smaller ones, and it doesn't seem to make a difference, because when you have a bigger space, it's just, you end up with
more stuff.
And I've lived in an RV, and it was the RV was no more crowded than my house was.
Right.
It was just full of different things. But it's for me, it's knowing that things have a reasonable space, and that, I think more importantly, that I know where to find things, even if they don't have a proper space.
Right.
Okay. What ends up, I go both stressing me out and sapping my energy, is seeking things that I know are there.
It's here.
Yes. And I do that far more than I'd like to, but and it doesn't seem to matter how small the space is.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
I was shocked when I lived in the RV how many times I managed to lose things in 30 feet of space.
Yeah.
But it happened all the time. So, and
right.
So I don't know if, environments that are super crowded, in a cluttered type of way, they will sap energy. But for me, I think having that environment organized is more important than what's in it. Because, if you took what is normally in, somebody's 1-bedroom apartment and spread it out over a 10,000 square foot home in a haphazard way, it's not going to be a benefit to me.
Interesting point. Right.
Even though it's not cluttered. So,
well, and I think of clutter and chaos being on the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual realms. We can have cluttered minds.
Yes.
Cluttered spiritual practice. So finding a way to organize it will help keep our energy in line.
Yes.
Another thing, and maybe this is part of the clutter we were just talking about, is when we say yes to the wrong things.
Mhm.
Have you ever said, yes, I'll do that project and you didn't want to? Or yes, I'll go with my friend to this and you didn't want to?
I'm not real likely to say yes to things that I know I don't want to. It's the ones that I think I wanted to, until I
Okay.
realized that I had, taken on too much. And
All right. That's the other side of that. Sure.
yeah, um,
So when there's too much to do.
mhm, yeah, yeah. Even if they're all things that interest me and all things I want to do and all things that are important, if,
Yeah.
you know, that's that will kill all my energy and all my motivation.
So that's a good recognition. Are you getting better about saying no to those things, things that aren't in your immediate dream path or project path?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Are you going to get better at it?
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I have been paying more attention in this year um, to the underlying aspects of things, not just
mm,
the immediate, what's on the surface to some requests, but um, how it connects to other things, what it really means to me, what the impact is going to be of doing it or not doing it. And the thing that I had, a lot of people tend to forget, is that a lot of decisions impact your future decisions as well. It's not just what you're doing at that point. So you might be thinking you're committing to a 2-hour event, but that quite often leads to other future things and other either prep time or after time or follow-up events or whatever it is.
other
And
opportunities.
even more so if that involves actually not just an event but a physical item. So because then you're bringing something into your space that now needs maintenance and care and use and all that. So I'm trying to be more aware of all that.
That sounds like a great start. Do you feel your energy
Mhm.
change as you get more in tune with those things?
I haven't noticed. I haven't really paid attention. Haven't really thought of it from that
Okay.
aspect.
Well,
So.
here's an opportunity for you to start doing it. Well, and you touched on something else that I know impacts our energy, and that's being too stationary,
Mhm.
sitting or standing too long without moving.
Yes.
They say that sitting is the new smoking, that if
Yes.
you don't get up pick your time, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and move and stretch, that
Mhm.
your body, your physical body is going to age and start working against you.
Yes.
That drains your energy.
Mhm.
I've just converted my desk back to a standing desk, and it's the same with standing. So it's not the sitting per se, though that's a big issue, but being stationary too long is hard. So my feet complain more rapidly than my backside does. So I do find that I'm stretching and moving a lot more with a standing desk.
Yes.
And I have a balance board that I'm not on right now. And I've learned to keep moving on it. So that keeps at least the waist down active. But I still need to go outside, get a change of scenery, some sunshine, some fresh air,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
which is all part of energy management, is the change of scenery, the fresh air, the sunshine.
Yeah. And I think knowing what the triggers are, well, not necessarily triggers, but factors are for you is important.
Right.
Because for me, I need to be out in nature. I mean, going out in the yard
Mhm.
has an impact, but
Yes.
going out there's a part of this yard that is mildly wooded. Going out to that part of the yard has more benefit than standing on the deck. But going out to a nearby, hiking trail and getting immersed in the woods will
Yes.
have a more lingering effect on my energy than just standing in the yard um
The
and
nature walk.
yes, yeah. So that Yeah, that's a big factor for my energy. I
Wonderful
need that.
recognition.
So
Wonderful recognition. And when you're out there, do you open all of your senses to take in the surprises, like a bird you've never seen before, or a little creature on the trail, or things like that? Are you hearing the wind in the leaves or the trees?
I always go, well, I don't always go, but I try to have that intention when I go. Sometimes I go just because I realize that I'm too far stressed or just out of it in whatever way. And I'm halfway through a walk before I kind of catch on to the fact that I haven't seen or noticed the thing that I just walked past. But most of the time, yes, that is a big part of it, is, getting out there and slowing down and connecting with the energy of that environment, and the creatures and other critters that live there, and the nature and the weather and the sun. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Great recognition, self-awareness. How do you respond energetically to holidays? Do they sap your energy or lift your energy?
I mean, that's not really a straightforward question. It's different in my world right now because I don't live near anyone that I celebrate holidays with, so they're not a whole lot different than most other days.
Okay.
But for the most part, when I do go and celebrate a holiday, I find them more energy giving than taking,
Good.
assuming that I like people. So,
Yeah.
which is actually somewhat interesting because I'm not an overly extroverted person. So typically, gatherings and crowds will drain me. But I think the difference with the holidays is it's typically people that I know well and people that I'm comfortable with. So, and we had a good family in that sense, that family gatherings and holidays, they were nice, they were peaceful. So
Good.
until it wasn't.
Something to look forward to.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to be a bed and breakfast innkeeper, and that's one Christmas I became aware of how painful holidays can be. A woman and her son came to stay with us because it was her first Christmas without her husband. He had died earlier that year, not even all that long before. So we put on a Christmas dinner for her and for them and all the other guests, and our presence helped make it a better Christmas for her.
Yeah.
And that was eye-opening for me.
Yeah. I think eventually, I mean, at some point you kind of have to accept that, putting too much emphasis on any given day or any given type of event, whether it's a holiday or a birthday or New Year's Eve or whatever it is,
Mondays, Fridays.
Yeah, it's there's rarely anything good that comes out of that. So
I came up with a mantra. I walked the Camino de Santiago. Speaking of a nature walk, do you know about the Camino?
I don't.
It's an 800-kilometer, 500-mile walk. Well, there are a dozen ways to Santiago, the city of Santiago de Compostela. And I took the more common one called the French Way. And I watched friendships, the new and the old, go through some rough times when people had expectations of the other. One woman had expectations of what the weather was going to be. And she was really mad when the weather wasn't what she wanted. Yeah. And, people would get upset when the innkeepers didn't have the breakfast they wanted or the kind of bed they wanted, and on and on. And I finally realized expectations kill. Drop expectations. And that goes with what you're saying about holidays or any day of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I think you need, at least for the way most people in our society live, we need some expectations because we need something to strive towards and drive at, and
And I see,
want, expect, and think,
I
but
call that,
not.
those are goals and
Yeah.
bars. Don't drop your bar of excellence.
Yeah.
Have
But
a
then
goal.
being able to adapt, and accept what is, because
Right. Right.
once something is, you either have, if you have the ability to change it, then that's one option. But a lot of cases, you just can't change the things that are around you and in the environment. If you can't change it, then your only options are to be miserable about it or to accept it and be happy with it. So
Adaptable, right.
and they have very different effects on how you feel mentally, and in regards to what we're talking about here, and how you feel energetically.
Yes. Yes.
And even though the environment and the situation is completely the same either way.
Yeah. And so it's mindset and attitude.
Yeah.
So which we kind of started the conversation with. Our mindset will give us energy or take our energy from us.
Yes. Yeah, it certainly can.
Let's see, what other comments? Don and I had done some talking about this. Okay, so we, in our promo page, we said that one of the things you might learn in our conversation is how energy impacts your life and how you see the world. And you and I kind of were just talking about that with the expectations.
Mm-hmm.
My experiences and observations are that when you see the world negatively, when you see the world as trying to get you, it's conspiracy to bring me down or ruin my day. When you see that when you give away your power,
yes,
in controlling your energy, that's when I think our energy gets sapped the most readily. What is that your experience? Do you have other ideas or comments about that?
That makes a lot of sense, and it is very true that it does end up sapping a lot of energy, but I think you can fall into patterns without necessarily realizing it. That if some environmental thing happens, whether it's a person or just a rainy day, and then that ends up you end up taking an effect from that, and maybe that makes you less energetic, then that's gonna, in a lot of ways, it creates a feedback loop to do something later that also has a negative impact on your energy, and you can quickly fall into a bad pattern of just low energy.
Yeah.
That is hard to break without an external force, and that's where the challenge comes in. Because if you've gotten into that spot, how do you get back out of it?
Right. And sometimes we have to rely on ourselves to get out of that downward spiral. Going back to the Camino, my hardest day was in going over the mountain Osabrero. And it was the highest mountain pass of the entire 500 miles. And when I stepped out of the albergue, which is their name for lodge or dorm, it was blowing rain, cold weather. And at first I'm going, just a little rain, but I was still on the front porch. I stepped off onto the trail, and it was a steep, relentless climb. And it was the second day of a steep, relentless climb.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly, my brain's going, I'm miserable. Can we go back? And I said, no, we got to go. We got deadlines to meet. I mean, deadline. We have to be in Santiago at a certain time. And if we stop now, we'll have a hard time meeting that deadline.
Yep.
And I just trudged with my brain whimpering and whimpering. And I was saying to myself, you're going to have to turn that attitude around. And I walked slower, and I got shorter, and my steps were shorter.
Mm-hmm.
And finally we came to a place where we could stop for coffee and breakfast and stuff. It was the crappiest coffee breakfast place we had. And I thought, oh, this is miserable. And when I took my jacket off, I could literally wring my sleeves out. I had a poncho, but my arms were sticking out, so my arms were drenched. Just warming up and drying off let me change my mindset. It was the same cold, windy, wet weather when I started again. But by then I'm going, all right, we're almost to the top. This is going to be okay. Yes, it's hard, but you've done hard things before, and keep on going. And that mental snap made it a lot better. So then when we got down to the bottom, all that rain that I've been walking through had washed all the manure from the farm animals that lived around onto the trail. And I walked through 2 inches of wet, icky manure. Yeah. And I go, oh, well, I'll take a shower when I get to the end of the trail today. So it was fun to see the difference in my attitude. So that's a long story to say your energy impacts your attitude, and your attitude impacts your energy. But I think our attitude, our mindset really does have the biggest amount of control.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Over your energy and many other things as well. So
yeah.
And it's just, unfortunately, it can be a serious challenge if you're in a spot that is difficult and all you have is yourself to make that change and to find that way back out. That can be a hard spot.
Absolutely. Do you have any tricks for what you do with yourself when you find yourself there?
A few. One of them is just sometimes you just look at the alternatives and realize you always know what you're trying to accomplish and what the point of that particular thing is, even if it's not a major goal. It might just be that you're trying to go grocery shopping or whatever it is, but you know what you're trying to get to. But I think mostly what works for me is you have a tendency when things are bad to kind of project it out into forever, even though you logically know that this isn't a forever thing. So stepping back and recognizing that whatever that bad scenario is, it does have a limit, and it does have a space and a time, to experience that. And a lot of times that's enough for me to just be able to get enough of a foothold to start changing a little bit of an attitude, or and a lot of times your attitude, like you said, it can impact a lot. It has huge aspects, but it plays the other way around too, that when I get in a sticky situation like that, a lot of times the fastest and easiest way out of it is with a physical change that ends up impacting the attitude. It's kind of like a kickstart mechanism to allow the more positive attitude to continue working.
Okay. So part of what I hear you saying is that when you can stay present or get back into the present, your mindset improves and you recognize the boundaries of the issue you're talking about, that they don't go on forever into the past or into the future.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Both, staying present mindset, all of that. And also depending on what the situation is. If it's an energy-based activity, a lot of times it's just somewhat forcing that energy, even though it's not natural at the moment, because that, movement in your body does impact your mental state.
Sure does.
So if you can, if all the being present is the foundation of a lot of things, but in some cases just that little force to pick up your pace, or walk with a little bit more enthusiasm, or hold your head up higher, stand up straighter, those things have a feedback to your mental state, and then that can be enough to hopefully elicit a change.
One of my Camino partners would start singing when he was feeling low energy. I go, oh, that's a clever. I don't know if he did that intentionally or if he was just having so much fun he burst into song. I love music, so.
I never thought of I'm not much of a singer, but I never thought of that as a.
I love to sing. I'll politely say I don't have a trained voice. So we talked about changing what we're doing. On that rainy, wet day, I changed walking. I took a break from the inevitable rain, wind, and cold and uphill, and just took a break. So we were saying that all movement, be it sitting or standing, needs to change. I guess walking needs a change sometimes too. So just taking a break helped.
Yeah. And I think there's, we get a lot of pressures in our society to achieve and, get more and do more and do more. And I think in some scenarios, you actually do need to stop and recognize that today's not the right day. And, maybe that coffee break extends out to, hey, I need a break today. All these high energy activities that I have in mind, that's not going to happen today, and just shift your mind and go to something else.
And maybe even think through the ramifications. Okay, if I stop now or take a longer break now, how will I make up the gap of where I'm supposed to be by the end of the day with where I'm supposed to be by the end of the week, let's say. And how can I manage shorten that gap?
And are those expectations reasonable, or
right.
set in your own head that you're just trying to achieve, or do they actually have outside impacts? If what happens if you don't make it? If you don't reach that goal, does it, in most cases, it doesn't matter if you're a day late. There's a lot of times it does. And that's an important distinction of knowing, are the things that you're pushing yourself for that are leading you towards burning out in your energy, are they as important as you've tried to make them out to be?
And going back to the Camino, if we hadn't gotten to Santiago on the day we intended to, we could have blown off this extra side trip that would take us out to an area called the End of the Earth, which is a beautiful seaside destination. I mean, it wasn't a resort, it was where the real Camino started, I guess. I don't know. It's where St. James' body was found, and part of the whole myth of the Santiago or the Camino. Or we could have said, we got here 2 days late. We want to do the extra trip, so we're just going to reschedule our flights home. Now, I'm self-employed. That wouldn't impact me. The cost of the flight change, but my partner had a job to go back to, and I don't know if she would have had a job if she had called and said, by the way, I'm going to be home 2 days late. So those are all, again, and would she have been fine with not having a job when she got back? So that's all part of that gap analysis that I brought up.
It's knowing You can only do so much, but it's
Whose
balancing.
rule is that?
I don't know. One that I tend to live by. But yeah, you do have to. I mean, there are times that you need to push yourself, even if you don't want to. It's knowing what the scenario is. And,
Yeah.
what
And
will
what do you
impact
really
you.
what do you really want and need? Are you pampering yourself unnecessarily, or is it real important to keep going?
Yeah. And on the other side of it, at least, for someone of my energy levels, it's very easy for me to convince myself that I need to take an entire week off and do nothing. Which
is that in your best
true.
Is that in your best interest, or
it's not? It's not my best interest, and it's not true at all. But so I have to balance that, that aspect very, very carefully of achieving what I want without burning out my energy. And
well, let's talk about some of the obvious things you have control over that impact your energy. Your diet, the amount you move, like to go into nature. I mean, really into nature. Your sleep.
Yeah.
How well do you sleep?
That all depends on what's going on in the day. So
let's just take general average. Do you sleep well? Do you fall asleep easily? Do you sleep a long time?
I rarely fall asleep easily.
Okay.
And that can be both physical and mental. So it really depends. I know certain things about me that matter. Like I sleep better if I was active during the day. I will sleep better at night. If I don't take the time to, I need a buffer time between doing things and sleeping. I can't just, even if it's something that I consider to be fun, even if I'm reading, I can't just shut the book and go to sleep, because I will carry that book in my brain with me, and I will think about it while I'm trying to sleep. So
you need to leave the party or put the book down or get away from the computer and just have the Steve diffusing time.
Yes. Yeah. And it doesn't take very long, but if I do that, I sleep better. And if I get myself in more of a stressed environment where I feel like I have to wake up at a certain time, it's already late, I'm only going to get X number of hours of sleep, and then I try to rush going to bed, I end up sleeping less.
So it sounds like you don't put, for the most part, any stress on yourself to skip that diffusing time. That is part of your sleep ritual. Close the book, put it down.
I'm not as good about it as I should be.
Is talking about it going to help?
Yeah, I mean, I really should be more consistent about it, because I know the impact of it, but I will still get rushed, because I stayed up too late, or I'm on the wrong schedule, or whatever else it is, or I'm just, I'm too tired and I don't feel like it and I just want to go to sleep. So I'll skip and I'll rush it. And it does.
What does your diffusing time look like? What do you do during that time? Are you doing breathing exercises, meditating, staring at the stars on the ceiling?
A little bit of all of that. I mean, for the most part, I usually start with just like the general closing up of the day, and straightening the house or putting things away, getting ready for bed, and all the normal things. But then just a lot of times it's just taking 5 to 10 minutes of sitting still, or doing a very simple stretching, or standing, or whatever it is, just some sort of soothing activity that is kind of just slowing down your body, slowing down your mind, and just, but getting out of the bright lights, getting sort of into that peaceful environment, and just sort of transitioning, and, just checking, making sure, is there tension being held anywhere in the body, or are there aspects of in your mind that need attention? And
that sounds brilliant.
So, you write them down, and they'll be there in the morning. And so it's just a kind of, it's almost like it's like a walking meditation in a lot of ways, but just kind of a checking in and closing down. So
how many hours a night do you try to sleep?
I know I'm the opposite. I try to sleep 8, and that's not a trying because I don't get to 8. It's trying because I'll sleep for 12 easily.
Okay.
So I just, like I said, once I get in a non-energy state, I will stay there.
So do you find that when you sleep 12 hours, 10 and 12 hours, is that next day less energy, lower energy day?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I do not feel good if I sleep that long, which is why I, make efforts not to do it. Because I won't feel good mentally or physically.
Right. I understand.
Especially, if I wake up, have breakfast, take a shower, and it's lunchtime, like, mentally you're already done, and just,
might as well go put your pajamas back on and go to bed.
So it's a bad way to start a day, and that'll end up impacting the following evening, because that pattern of not being done with whatever your to-do list is, or whatever your objectives are for the day or the week, always feeling like there's an unending list of things to do, that for me, that tends to encourage me to stay up later trying to fit those things in, which means that I'm not sleeping the way I should. And then so maintaining a proper amount of sleep is both sides of it. It's making sure that you are up at a sufficient amount of time and actually doing the things, so at the end of the day, there's an accomplishment, and some level of control, and knowing that things are on a path, so you can slow down and go to sleep. And
do you go to lie down to go? Do you go to bed at the same time every night, or try to?
Within a couple hours. So I'm not super consistent about things, but
I hear that that's part of a good night's sleep. And then getting up at the same time every day. With a 1 hour range or something.
Yeah, but there's also the fact that sleep is more than just pure time laying in your bed. So you can be laying in your bed and asleep for 8 hours. The quality of that can change a lot depending on
absolutely.
What your environment is and what you've done beforehand. So I think that has a bigger impact than I think we recognize a lot. So.
Well, and to make the quality of the sleep better, I'm hearing things like, be sure you have finished eating and drinking at least 3 hours before going to bed. Don't drink alcohol within 3 hours to going to bed or more.
See, I just ignore those rules. So,
and
I honestly, I don't, like, if I can't sleep, I get up and eat. I'll get up, have a snack.
I bet it reflects the quality of your sleep. I'll bet you.
I know there's a lot of set rules to things, but everybody is a little bit unique. So I think it's more important to test the rules.
Or is that a story we tell ourselves so we can keep living the lives we want?
We're all very similar in a lot of ways, but unique in others. So
we are unique individuals, no doubt. So So how does your diet affect your energy level?
Yeah, I mean, diet's a huge component. You know, um, you know, a
Have
lot
you
of
noticed that a certain diet will give you better sleep quality than a different diet?
I have um, I have never made a connection between my diet and my quality of sleep. I definitely see the connection between diet and my mental and physical energy during the day, which obviously has an impact on sleep. But
Well, no, does your diet impact your energy? Did I say that wrong? Or
or I heard it wrong, one of the two.
you just
But
want to keep talking about going to sleep?
uh, but yeah, I mean, diet it definitely has an impact on energy, both mentally and physically, and that's something that I know, and there are certain foods that are going to kind of just make you heavier and just a little bit more sluggish, and certain foods that won't. But I find that I need some of both in order to feel good all around. Yeah, I don't. I mean, as a whole, I'm gonna feel more energetic after eating a salad for lunch than I would something
Pizza,
heavier. But
ice
if
cream.
that's all I ever ate, I wouldn't feel all that great.
I was
So
just
we
talking to
need
a friend
balance.
yesterday who did an elimination diet for 3 weeks, and dairy was one of the things he took out of his diet.
Mhm,
And when the 3 weeks are up, he treated himself to a little bite of cheese. And he said,
mhm.
I had so much brain fog that I've realized I love cheese, but I can't eat it if I want to have my brain working for him. And he's a financial advisor, consultant, investor type. So he really needs his brain to work well for him. And
Yeah,
his clients want that too.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I thought,
Cheese will
wow,
have that impact for sure.
yeah, what a great demonstration. Good for him for being willing to experiment with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
had recognized the same thing because I went on a weekend trip with a vegan group. So for the entire weekend, I was eating a vegan diet, and I got back home, had a slice of cheese pizza, and felt awful,
oh,
horrible. And I'm just like, okay, I'm not accustomed to it. I was just like, but
right.
after a couple times of making that experiment, it was, became
You,
more obvious that it does
yeah,
have an impact. So
you'd cleaned your system enough for it to be impacted by that cheese pizza.
yeah, yeah.
But to go back to something you said earlier, people are different. I have a friend who lives on pizza and wine or
Mhm.
homemade bread and cheese and stuff. And it
Doesn't sound
seems
so
to work
bad.
well, it seems to work well for him.
Yeah,
I mean, he doesn't get sick and I don't know.
yeah.
It's interesting, but uh,
I would say
I,
he's got a lot of mental happiness in there, so that's got to
well, he
go well.
absolutely does. Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
with that kind of diet, how could you not?
I agree. I agree. And we already talked about how attitude can affect your energy. So,
Mhm.
what haven't we covered that you think we should?
We covered attitude, um, kind of trigger points, diet, sleep, um, in a lot of ways, relationships. Um,
Yeah.
but that was covered that under holidays, but not. There's a lot just in relationships as a whole that can
Yes.
that's worth seeing, whether it's a coworker or a person that you consider to be a friend or more.
Right.
What does that you know how does that person impact you? And a lot of that is the impacts of an introvert versus an extrovert. But even on an introverted side, the people who are closest to you typically don't drain an introvert as much as strangers.
Oh,
So,
that's an interesting point. Okay.
but um, but if you have someone who is close to you that is always an energy drain, then recognize.
Noted. Yeah. We did also talk about how movement affects energy. And you recognize that you need to get out into nature, not just out into the sunshine on the porch, but out in nature to lift your energy.
Yes. Yeah. Both my energy and my mental capacity.
Well-being. Yeah.
All of those. So
Yeah.
I mean, but that is something that is more unique to me than a lot of people I know. So, but I think movement does play a role. And I think just changing that environment. For me, my change of environment tends to be out in nature, but sometimes, just a change of scenery can have an impact on both your mental and physical state. So
yeah, and I guess if you've been out in nature too long, getting in and out of nature can be refreshing.
That's true.
Yeah. I discovered that when I'm driving long distance, that if I stop every 1 to 2 hours to fuel the car, defuel my bladder, walk, move, just do something, I can drive all day long and return, get to the destination feeling refreshed, not wrung out. And that was a pretty exciting awareness. Like, oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I was probably a safer driver because I was stopping every hour or two.
Yeah, and that's part of recognizing, what works best for you. I know for me, I need to make that first leg as long as possible. If I take a break an hour into a drive, then that drive just drags on and I'm mentally beaten and I'm awful. But if I can make that first leg, 3 hours, then the rest of the drive is easier for me.
Interesting. I have the
Except for the drive
unfortunate.
home. Drive home is always worse.
Oh, is it? Okay.
For me, it is. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little bits of movement like that, it has an impact.
Yeah.
Whether it's the fact that we're driving or, trying to actually do computer type of work.
Right.
They're different. They're both energy consuming. It's just like energy is not always just, going out and running.
It's right. It's living takes energy.
Yeah.
It affects your breathing, your heart rate, and your thinking.
Yeah. And sometimes, whether it's driving or working, those little, get out and run around the car type of thing, it has an impact. So,
well, Steve, this has been a fascinating hour. I hope you'll consider coming back next month. Thanks for joining me today. My name again is Kit Cassingham. My business is called Live in Focused Energy. I'm a longevity coach. I help people embrace their longer years by redefining the foundation that they live on, helping them remember and identify their values and what makes them tick and grow. If you want to spend more time with me, we could do a strategy session. You can go to my website, liveinfocusedenergy.com/questionnaire, and fill out the form, and then we'll arrange a time to talk. I will leave that URL in the show notes and look forward to talking to you personally or in our next call. I'm Kit Cassingham.